Humans were not allowed to build warships. That was the rule the Galactic Council had laid down soon after first contact with Earth. The Council, a group of beings far older and wiser than humans, had watched humanity from the shadows for decades before they even made their presence known. Their warning was clear. Humans were too unpredictable, too emotional, too driven by pride and fear. If humans were allowed to create weapons capable of traveling between stars, it could bring disaster not only to Earth but to the entire galaxy. For a long time, most humans accepted the Council's decision. Governments and leaders, for the most part, complied. Earth was allowed to explore space, but only for research, trade, and observation. No warships, no offensive capabilities. Many people believed it was for their own good. Some even argued that humans were too young as a species to handle that kind of power. But there were others who disagreed. They were engineers, scientists, military strategists, and dreamers who could not stand by and watch as the future of humanity was limited by beings who did not fully understand them. They believed humans had the right to defend themselves, to protect their planet, and to prove that they could rise to the challenge of the stars. They were convinced that one day the Council's caution could become a threat. What if another species came along that didn't share the Council's principles? What if Earth was left unprotected because humans were told they couldn't build the tools to defend themselves? This belief, quiet at first, began to grow. Small groups started meeting in secret. They discussed theories, designed prototypes on paper, and shared ideas away from the eyes of the world. These were ordinary people by most standards, scientists who had once worked on satellites, engineers who had built airplanes and space stations, but they were united by one extraordinary goal: to create a ship that could travel the stars and defend humanity if the need arose. The project had to remain hidden. The Galactic Council monitored Earth's space projects carefully. Satellites, spaceports, and orbital research stations were all under observation. The moment they detected a project that looked like a weapon, it would be destroyed. That was the risk. Every step forward had to be calculated, every design carefully disguised. It began in underground laboratories, in deserts and remote regions where no one would stumble upon them. Engineers who had once designed commercial spacecraft started to adapt their skills. They studied ancient naval warships, human history, and modern space technology. They combined old knowledge with new, imagining a vessel that could protect Earth without being noticed until it was complete. It was a delicate balance, creating something powerful enough to defend humanity, but hiding it well enough that the Council would not immediately intervene. At first, progress was slow. Materials had to be gathered without attracting attention. Funding came from private organizations, wealthy visionaries who believed in humanity's right to self-defense. Engineers worked in shifts, living underground for months at a time. They sacrificed comfort and safety. Mistakes were dangerous, not only for themselves but for the entire project. Yet every problem they solved brought them closer to the impossible. The secrecy created tension. Some people involved began to question the morality of their actions. They wondered if defying the Council was a mistake. Would humans be punished? Could they bring harm to the planet they were trying to protect? These doubts were real, but the engineers and leaders guiding the project reminded everyone of the stakes. Humanity had been warned, yes, but warnings did not change the fact that other civilizations existed, some with unknown intentions. Being forbidden from building warships did not guarantee safety. It only guaranteed dependency on beings who might not always act in Earth's interest. As the years passed, the project grew. Designs moved from sketches to prototypes. Small craft were tested, disguised as research vessels. Engines capable of interstellar travel were developed under the cover of civilian experiments. Communication networks were established so that the team could coordinate in secret. Every day, the engineers faced the fear of discovery. Every day, they reminded themselves that this was about survival, about proving that humans could rise above the limitations imposed on them. Outside of the project, life on Earth went on as usual. Citizens lived their ordinary lives unaware that beneath the surface, something extraordinary was taking shape. Governments maintained the facade of obedience to the Council, while secretly some military leaders kept a close watch on the developments. The project was no longer just a dream, it was becoming reality. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, began to notice subtle anomalies. Energy signatures appeared in areas where none should exist. Metal structures grew beneath the deserts. invisible to satellites but detectable by more sensitive instruments. It was subtle, but for the first time the Council became suspicious. They did not understand what humans were building, but they knew something was happening that should not have been. Warnings were sent. Transmissions came through official channels calling the project a violation of the rules. The Council did not attack yet. They did not destroy the underground facilities. Instead, they communicated with human leaders demanding explanations. They reminded Earth that humanity was being tested and that failure to comply could result in serious consequences. Yet despite the warnings, the project continued. The people involved understood the risks. They knew they were defying the most powerful beings humanity had ever encountered. But they also understood something else. The human spirit was not meant to be controlled by fear alone. They believed that humanity had the right to shape its own future, even if that future came with danger. Every engineer, every scientist, every worker involved became part of a story that would one day be remembered as a turning point in human history. They worked tirelessly, solving impossible problems, pushing the limits of technology, and proving that determination and ingenuity could achieve what the galaxy said was impossible. The story of humanity's first warship was not just about machines or metal. It was about courage. It was about belief in oneself and in one's species. It was about the quiet defiance of ordinary people who refused to accept limits placed upon them by those who did not fully understand the human heart. And so, in secret laboratories beneath deserts and mountains, humans began to build what had never been allowed. They worked without rest, without recognition, and without certainty of success. They were driven by a single thought. If humans could survive, they would do so on their own terms. This was the beginning of something extraordinary. A project born from warnings, doubts, and fear, but fueled by hope, courage, and the unshakable determination of humans to stand tall among the stars. It was a project that would one day change the way the galaxy saw Earth forever. Even as the Council watched and cautioned, humans continued. They were warned not to build warships, but for the first time, humanity realized that the future was theirs to define. And so they built quietly, patiently, and with a determination that no warning could ever suppress. This was the first step of a journey that would take them beyond the limits the galaxy had set. A journey that would test their courage, their ingenuity, and their ability to act as one species when the time came. Humanity was not just learning to survive, they were learning to rise. And this story, just beginning, would be remembered for generations as the moment humans chose to defy limits and take their place among the stars. Humans were building something the galaxy had forbidden, but in the shadows, beneath deserts, mountains, and frozen lands, the project was no longer just a dream. It was becoming real. The hidden laboratories were alive with the sound of machinery, the hum of engines, and the quiet murmur of engineers working long hours. Each person involved felt the weight of history on their shoulders. Every bolt, every panel, every calculation mattered. They knew that if they failed, it would not only be their lives at risk, it could change the future of the entire species. The project had a name, though it was rarely spoken aloud outside the closest circle: Project Helios. Named after the ancient symbol of the sun, it represented hope, energy, and humanity's reach for something beyond themselves. Inside the underground complexes, engineers and scientists worked in shifts that could last days. Sleep was short, food was simple, and the sense of urgency was constant. There were no holidays, no celebrations, no breaks. Every moment was dedicated to building a warship the Council had said they could never have. At first, progress was slow. Materials were difficult to acquire without attracting attention. The team had to pretend that they were building civilian research equipment, satellites, or other peaceful technologies. Metals were sourced through legitimate trade channels, then redirected and modified in secret. Engines were disguised as energy generators or propulsion experiments for satellites. Every component was hidden in plain sight. Despite the secrecy, small victories kept the team motivated. Tiny spacecraft tests, barely noticeable to anyone outside, gave proof that the concepts were working. A propulsion system that could one day carry a ship across the stars began to hum successfully in the test chambers. Hull materials designed to withstand extreme conditions passed rigorous simulations. Slowly, piece by piece, Project Helios took shape. But it was not just the machines that mattered. The people involved had to grow as well. Engineers had to learn skills far beyond their normal work. Scientists had to think creatively, adapting technology in ways never attempted before. Soldiers and security experts trained to protect the project, learning strategies to keep intruders away and to respond if the council discovered their work. Each person was aware that they were part of something extraordinary, something that could one day decide the fate of Earth. Outside the secret complexes, life on Earth went on normally. People went to work, families lived their everyday lives, and governments continued their official cooperation with the Galactic Council. On the surface, humanity appeared to be obedient, peaceful, and cautious. But beneath the surface, a different reality was growing. A reality shaped by determination, courage, and a willingness to defy authority when it threatened survival. Even within the team, tensions arose. Some questioned whether they were doing the right thing. After all, the Council had warned them repeatedly. Defying such beings was not a small risk. What if they were caught? What if the project failed and brought destruction instead of protection? And yet those doubts never fully stopped the work. Each time someone faltered, another reminded them that humans had always survived against the odds. That the same spirit that had built cities, sailed oceans, and reached the moon could overcome fear and restriction in this moment as well. Time passed, and the work accelerated. What had begun as sketches on paper became metal frames, energy systems, and control rooms. The warship's design was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. It was not meant for conquest, not meant to dominate others, but for defense and survival. Engineers designed systems to allow it to operate independently, to protect Earth even if humans had to face enemies far stronger and more advanced. Every feature had a purpose, every choice was deliberate. The Galactic Council began to notice anomalies. Energy readings appeared in places where none should exist. Satellites occasionally detected unusual constructions deep underground or in remote regions. It was subtle at first, almost easy to dismiss, but patterns began to emerge. Someone, somewhere, was building something beyond what was allowed. Warnings arrived. Official transmissions were sent to human leaders demanding explanations. The Council reminded Earth that humanity was under their supervision. They called it a violation of the rules, a dangerous step that could lead to consequences. They were patient but firm, giving humans a chance to stop before serious action was taken. The warnings caused debate. Governments argued, divided between those who wanted to comply and those who believed humanity had the right to continue. Inside the secret complexes, engineers and workers felt the tension. They knew discovery could be catastrophic. Yet the response from the leaders who supported the project was simple: humanity could not remain defenseless. They argued that survival and independence were worth the risk. Work continued in secret. The engineers refined systems, improved propulsion, and tested energy shields. Security measures were increased. Hidden sensors detected potential intrusions. The team had to be prepared not only for technical challenges, but for the possibility that the Council could arrive to stop them at any moment. The knowledge that they were being watched added urgency, but also strengthened their resolve. The human spirit, in its ordinary form, shone brightest in these moments. People who were once office workers, teachers, and engineers became pioneers of survival and courage. They endured long nights, solved problems that had never been solved, and inspired one another to keep going even when fear and fatigue threatened to take over. The bonds they formed were strong. In a way, the project became more than just about building a ship. It became a testament to humanity's ability to work together when the stakes were highest. By this time, some parts of the ship were already operational. Small testing crafts capable of short-distance flight were deployed. These tests allowed the team to understand how energy systems functioned in real conditions, how materials behaved under stress, and how human operators could manage the controls. Each successful flight gave confidence. Each failure taught lessons that no simulation could provide. Outside observers, the Galactic Council included, began to grow suspicious. The anomalies could no longer be ignored. Communication channels were used to remind Earth's leaders of the risks. The Council did not act with hostility yet. They observed, they warned, and they monitored. But it was clear that they were aware that something beyond ordinary research was happening. Inside the underground complexes, the people building the ship did not panic. Instead, they focused. Every challenge became a reason to work harder. They knew that if humanity was to survive and claim a place in the stars, it could not be timid. Fear could not control them. Rules meant to limit human potential were not accepted. They were challenges to be met. And humans by nature were stubborn, resourceful, and determined. The construction of the ship became a symbol of possibility. It represented what humans could achieve when they refused to be held back. And even as the Council's warnings continued, the team found new ways to innovate, to hide, and to ensure that their work would not be destroyed. And so, life went on in a double world. On the surface, humanity obeyed and appeared peaceful. Beneath the ground, humanity defied the galaxy's orders and built the impossible. Ordinary people were becoming extraordinary. Engineers became pioneers, scientists became guardians, and the people working quietly in remote deserts and frozen lands became the authors of a story that the galaxy would remember for centuries. Project Helios continued to grow, slowly but surely. The ship began to take shape, and every day the human team proved to themselves that they could achieve what had been deemed impossible. They were not seeking glory, not seeking power, not seeking recognition. They were building for survival, for hope, and for the future of their species. Every test, every calculation, every quiet night spent under fluorescent lights was a step toward something larger than any individual. It was a step toward proving that humans were capable of more than what anyone, even the galaxy's oldest and wisest beings, had imagined. The story of Project Helios was no longer just a secret mission. It was a story about courage, determination, and the unyielding will of a species that refused to be limited. Humans were not only surviving, they were rising, learning to master technology, and preparing to claim a place among the stars on their own terms. And while the Council watched, waiting and warning, humanity kept moving forward. Every day brought them closer to the moment when Project Helios would emerge from the shadows. Every day the dream of building a warship, forbidden as it was, became closer to reality. And one day humans knew the world and the galaxy would see what could be achieved when determination, courage, and ingenuity combined in a single, unstoppable force. Despite their best efforts to remain hidden, the humans working on Project Helios could not completely escape notice. The Galactic Council, with its vast network of sensors and observers, began to notice small anomalies. Energy readings in remote regions of Earth did not match any known civilian technology. Satellites picked up unusual metallic patterns in areas that should have been empty. At first, the anomalies were subtle, almost easy to dismiss, but over time the Council grew suspicious. Something was happening beneath the surface, and it was bigger than ordinary research. Warnings soon followed. Official messages were sent to Earth's leaders, stressing that humanity had crossed a boundary it was not meant to cross. The Council reminded the humans that they were under strict observation, and that the creation of warships violated every rule they had agreed to. The messages were stern but calm. They were not angry yet, but they were warning Earth that any further defiance would bring consequences. Governments on Earth were divided. Some leaders argued that the warnings were serious, and that compliance was necessary to avoid disaster. Others insisted that humans had the right to protect themselves, that relying on outside powers for safety was dangerous. Inside the secret laboratories, the people working on Project Helios felt the tension as well. They had dedicated years to building a ship that could defend Earth, and now they were facing the very real possibility of being discovered. Despite the warnings, work continued. The humans involved in the project were determined to finish what they had started. They were not doing this for fame or wealth. They were doing it for survival, for the future of their species. Engineers worked tirelessly to complete the ship. Scientists refined the energy systems, and security teams strengthened the defenses around the underground complexes. Every day brought new challenges, but also small victories. The engineers developed systems that the Council had never expected a human species to create. Energy shields, propulsion systems capable of interstellar travel, and navigation technologies all advanced under careful secrecy. Every test flight of small prototypes was a lesson in innovation. Failures were not setbacks. They were opportunities to learn, improve, and adapt. The humans were proving that their ingenuity and determination could overcome limits even the galaxy itself had imposed. Inside the laboratories, the mood was tense but focused. People worked long hours, often going days without sleep, knowing that a single mistake could expose the project. Every decision was weighed carefully, from the materials used to the placement of sensors. Security measures became increasingly sophisticated. Guards patrolled the perimeter, and sensors monitored for intrusions. The team knew that the Council could arrive at any moment, and they had to be ready. Despite the pressure, the human spirit shone brightly. Ordinary people became extraordinary under the weight of responsibility. Scientists who had once focused on simple experiments now designed systems that could protect an entire planet. Engineers who had built satellites now worked on technologies that could rival those of the oldest and most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Every day, the humans involved were learning, growing, and pushing the limits of what their species could achieve. The Council's presence loomed over them like a shadow. Energy signatures, unexplained constructions, and unusual communication patterns were noticed and analyzed. The Council did not act aggressively yet. They were watching, waiting, and warning. But the humans felt the tension in every vibration of the machinery, in every quiet conversation held behind closed doors. They knew that discovery was possible, and that it could mean the end of everything they had worked for. Inside Earth's governments, debates raged. Some leaders wanted to shut down the project immediately, fearing the wrath of the Council. Others argued that the warnings were a test, a challenge to see how humans would respond. They believed that turning away now would be a mistake, that it would leave humanity weak and vulnerable to any threat in the future. These debates added to the pressure, but they also highlighted one truth. Humanity was no longer willing to be controlled. In the secret laboratories, the people building the ship were undeterred. They worked with a quiet determination, knowing that their actions were shaping the future of the planet. They developed communication protocols that could bypass detection, tested propulsion systems in isolated locations, and refined energy shields to withstand conditions no human had ever faced. Every new system added to the ship made it more advanced, more capable, and more ready to face the unknown. The tension grew as the Council's warnings became more frequent. Messages were sent with increasing urgency, calling for compliance and reminding humans of the risks. Earth's leaders were pressured to respond, but the project continued. Those working on it knew that they were acting in the best interest of humanity, and that sometimes survival required defiance. They understood the danger, but they also understood that giving up would mean leaving their planet defenseless. Outside the laboratories, ordinary life continued. People went to work, children went to school, and cities carried on as usual. Few could imagine the extraordinary effort taking place in secret beneath the surface. Those involved in the project moved like ghosts through society, balancing normal lives with the extraordinary responsibility they carried. Every day was a test of patience, skill, and courage. As the project advanced, humans began to demonstrate ingenuity that even the Council did not fully expect. They found ways to camouflage energy signatures, redirect sensor readings, and hide structures within the natural landscape. They used the planet's geography to their advantage, taking advantage of mountains, deserts, and frozen regions to conceal their work. Every innovation was a statement of human determination and creativity. Inside the underground facilities, the atmosphere was one of quiet focus. People worked in shifts, monitored by a few trusted leaders who coordinated every operation. The ship was beginning to take recognizable shape, its hull forming, engines being installed, and energy systems integrated. Each step brought the team closer to a future that had once seemed impossible. Even as they worked, humans remained aware of the risks. The Council was powerful, ancient, and vigilant. Discovery could lead to punishment, sanctions, or even destruction of the project. Yet the people involved believed that their work was necessary. They were not building for war, they were building for survival. They were proving that humans could face challenges, overcome limits, and rise above fear. Tension continued to mount. The Council monitored every unusual activity, sending further warnings and increasing surveillance. Humans on Earth debated, governments negotiated behind closed doors, and the team underground continued its relentless work. Every day was a balance between caution and progress, between fear and hope. But despite the pressure, the human spirit prevailed. Engineers solved problems that seemed unsolvable, scientists developed new technologies, and security teams kept the project safe. People endured long hours, fatigue, and stress, motivated by a belief in the importance of their mission. They understood that they were not just building a ship, They were shaping the future of their species. The warnings from the Council became a constant presence, a reminder of the risk humanity was taking. Yet they also served as motivation. The humans involved knew that they were proving something important, that they could innovate, survive, and rise to challenges that others said were impossible. Every small victory in testing, every successful system integration, every secure operation was proof that humanity's determination could not be ignored. As the ship neared completion, the people working on Project Helios felt a mix of fear and excitement. They knew that discovery was possible at any moment, but they also knew that they were on the verge of something historic. The ship was no longer just a project, it was a symbol of human courage, ingenuity, and defiance. Ordinary people had become pioneers. Engineers, scientists, and workers were no longer just building machinery. They were building hope. Every calculation, every test, every sleepless night was a testament to humanity's ability to rise above limitations, to face fear, and to take control of their destiny. The story of Project Helios was now visible to the galaxy, at least to those who knew where to look. Energy anomalies, hidden structures, and subtle signals had caught the attention of the Council. Humans were being watched more closely than ever, and tensions were rising. Yet the people building the ship continued, driven by a simple belief. Survival required courage, and courage required action. The underground laboratories were a place of both pressure and purpose. Every person involved understood that history was being written with their hands. They were solving problems, innovating, and working together like never before. And as the ship took its final shape, they knew that humanity was preparing to step into a new chapter, one where they would no longer be limited by fear or by rules imposed from above. Project Helios was nearing a point where it could no longer be hidden. The energy it produced, the tests it conducted, and the progress it had made would soon become undeniable. The humans working on it understood the risks, but they also understood that sometimes defiance is necessary to ensure survival. They had begun with sketches, ideas, and hope, and they were about to see those dreams become reality. And after years of secret work, the ship was finally nearing completion. Project Helios was no longer just an idea, it was real. The massive structure, hidden deep underground and beneath layers of camouflage, had taken shape. Engineers and scientists walked its corridors daily, inspecting every system, checking every connection, and running simulations. Each of them knew they were part of something that could change the course of human history. Outside, the world remained unaware. Cities bustled, people went to work, children played, and governments maintained the official appearance of obedience to the Galactic Council. The Council itself, however, had begun to notice more than just small anomalies. Energy spikes, unusual readings, and subtle disturbances in space near Earth could no longer be ignored. Observers had been quietly monitoring Earth for decades, but now the signs pointed to something extraordinary. Warnings had been sent repeatedly. Earth's leaders had received messages from the Council, stern and clear, demanding explanation. The Council reminded them that humanity had been explicitly forbidden from building warships. Yet despite these warnings, Project Helios continued. The humans involved understood the risk, but they also understood that their survival and independence depended on this work. Inside the underground complexes, the mood was tense but focused. People moved quickly and silently, often skipping meals or sleep to complete critical tasks. Systems were tested again and again. Engines roared to life in controlled chambers. Energy shields were activated and calibrated. Navigation computers were linked to control panels, and simulations showed that the ship could maneuver in ways previously thought impossible. Every day, the human team proved that they could achieve the extraordinary. The ship was designed for defense, not attack. Its creators had no desire to threaten other civilizations, no intention of conquering planets or taking what did not belong to them. Instead, it was built to protect Earth, to serve as a deterrent against any threat, and to show that humans could stand on their own if necessary. It was a vessel that embodied human ingenuity, resilience, and courage. Despite the secrecy, the Council's attention grew. Observers detected a major energy surge during one of the final tests. They realized that humans had gone far beyond research or peaceful exploration. Something unprecedented was happening on Earth. A message arrived again, more urgent this time. The Council demanded an explanation. warning that failure to comply could result in intervention. Inside the laboratories, the team knew the time for secrecy was reaching its limit. They prepared for the possibility that their work would be discovered. Security measures were heightened. Emergency protocols were reviewed. Communication channels were tested to ensure that even if the Council tried to interfere, the ship could operate independently. The tension was heavy, but it did not break the spirit of those involved. The first moment of truth came quietly. One morning, a small prototype, part of the Helios project, was sent on a test flight just above the surface. The craft was designed to appear like a normal research vessel, but its capabilities were far beyond anything officially allowed. It maneuvered with precision, its engines producing energy signatures that should have been impossible for humans. Within hours, the Council detected the craft. Observers were stunned. They had anticipated human ingenuity to a degree, but this surpassed all expectations. For the first time, they realized that Project Helios was not a simple violation. It was a demonstration of human creativity and determination. The Council's sensors detected energy fields, propulsion efficiency, and defense systems that no one believed humans could develop. Earth's leaders received another message, more urgent than ever. The Council demanded that the ship be decommissioned immediately. They reminded humans of the rules and the consequences of defiance. Yet, the engineers and scientists, along with their supporters in leadership, refused to halt the project. They argued that this was not an act of aggression, but a necessary step to ensure humanity's survival. Inside the ship, the human team felt a mixture of fear and excitement. They knew that discovery was inevitable, but they also knew that this was their chance to show what humans were capable of. The Helios was a symbol of everything that made humanity unique: resilience, creativity, and courage in the face of impossible odds. As the Council's fleet approached Earth's orbit, observers were amazed. The Helios, though still incomplete, was operational in critical ways. Its propulsion systems allowed it to hover, maneuver, and demonstrate its energy shields. The Council had expected humans to be cautious, but instead, they had created something that could rival some of the galaxy's oldest vessels. Communication from the Helios was simple and firm. Humans sent a message to the Council. They were not seeking war. They had built the ship to defend their planet and to ensure the safety of their species. The message was received with surprise. The Council had never encountered a species so determined, so willing to defy strict rules for the sake of survival, yet so careful to avoid unnecessary aggression. Inside the ship, engineers monitored every system, ready to respond to any challenge. Scientists observed energy flows, ensuring that shields and propulsion remained stable. Security teams kept watch for any interference. It was a tense moment, but it was also a moment of triumph. Humanity had taken a step that no one thought possible. The first real test of the ship's capabilities came unexpectedly. A Council patrol approached the site to investigate the anomalies. The Helios, still incomplete, activated its energy shields and maneuvered to demonstrate its capabilities. The display was precise and controlled, showing strength without aggression. The Council's observers were forced to acknowledge that humans had achieved something remarkable. For the first time, the Council began to reconsider its assumptions about humanity. The species that had been considered reckless, emotional, and unpredictable had shown restraint, intelligence, and determination. Humans were not acting out of hatred or desire for conquest. They were acting out of necessity, courage, and a sense of responsibility for their own future. Inside Earth, the people working on the ship felt a mixture of relief and pride. Years of secret work, sleepless nights, and sacrifices had led to this moment. They had not only built a ship, but had also shown that humanity could rise above limitations imposed by even the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The Helios became a symbol of human ingenuity. It was proof that determination and collaboration could achieve what had been deemed impossible. Engineers, scientists, and workers had shown that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when motivated by a shared purpose. Every bolt, every panel, every system represented not just technology, but the spirit of a species refusing to be constrained. Despite the tension, humanity remained careful. The Helios was not used aggressively. It did not fire weapons or attack. Instead, it demonstrated capabilities in a controlled and measured way, showing that humans could act responsibly with the power they had created. This careful approach impressed some members of the council, who began to see that humans could be trusted with greater responsibility than they had previously assumed. The first launch and demonstration of Project Helios was only the beginning. It had proven that humans could build advanced technology, that they could innovate beyond expectations, and that they could act with restraint even when facing powerful beings. It had also shown that the future of humanity could no longer be dictated by fear or by rules imposed from above. Inside the ship, the human team continued to work, refining systems and preparing for the next stage. They knew that the council's attention would remain, and that future challenges were inevitable. Yet they were ready. Every day they learned, adapted, and improved. They were no longer just engineers, scientists, and workers. They were pioneers of a new era. The moment of Helios's first display would be remembered for generations. It marked the point at which humanity stepped out from the shadows and proved that it could rise to challenges even the galaxy itself thought impossible. It was a moment of triumph, courage, and hope. And so, the story of Project Helios continued, with humans standing on the edge of a new era. The ship, a product of years of secrecy, sacrifice, and ingenuity, had finally shown the world and the galaxy what humanity could achieve. The journey was far from over, but the first step had been taken. Humans had defied expectations, faced warnings, and demonstrated that the future could belong to them if they were willing to fight for it. The Helios, hovering quietly, was more than a machine. It was a symbol. It was proof that humans could overcome limits, rise above fear, and shape their destiny. And for the people who had built it, every moment spent in the shadow of secrecy had been worth it. Humanity had proven without violence or aggression that it could act boldly, responsibly, and with the courage to defy impossible odds. The moment of confrontation had arrived. Project Helios, though still under construction in hidden complexes, had drawn the full attention of the Galactic Council. Observers in orbit and distant monitoring stations had gathered enough evidence to conclude that humans were building a warship, something the Council had explicitly forbidden. The warnings and messages sent earlier had gone unheeded, and now, the Council wanted to see the ship for themselves. Earth's leaders were tense. They knew that the arrival of Council fleets in orbit was not just a warning. It was a test, a standoff, and perhaps the most dangerous moment humanity had ever faced. The engineers, scientists, and workers who had built the Helios knew that the Council's arrival could end their project or even threaten their lives. Yet, instead of fear, there was a quiet determination. Humanity had come too far to turn back now. The Helios, though incomplete, was ready to show its capabilities. Engineers ran final systems checks, energy shields were calibrated, and propulsion systems were tested once more. The ship's hull, designed to withstand extreme conditions, glimmered with a quiet power. Inside, the human team moved with focus and precision, knowing that every action could influence the outcome of this encounter. As the Council fleet approached, energy readings spiked across their monitoring stations. Their ships, sleek and ancient, moved with purpose toward Earth. They expected resistance, or at the very least panic. Instead, they were met with calm preparation. The humans aboard the Helios were not reckless. They were ready, organized, and determined to show that their actions were not motivated by aggression. Communication was established. The Council demanded an explanation for the energy readings in the ship's presence. They expected fear, excuses, or surrender. What they received instead was clear, concise, and firm. Humanity explained that the Helios was not a weapon of conquest, but a vessel of defense. It had been built to ensure the safety of the planet, to protect humans from threats, and to demonstrate that humans could manage the responsibility of advanced technology. The Council was taken aback. They had anticipated a species that might panic, rebel, or act aggressively. Instead, they faced a species that was confident, organized, and thoughtful. The Helios hovered above the hidden complexes, its shields active, its systems operational. Yet it did not advance toward the Council. It was a quiet, controlled demonstration of capability, a message that humans could rise to challenges without resorting to destruction. Inside the ship, engineers monitored every system. Sensors detected the Council's positions, energy levels, and movements. The crew was prepared for any potential attack but hoped it would not come. Scientists observed the energy flows of the shields and propulsion, ensuring stability even under stress. The human team understood that this was a defining moment. Success meant proving humanity's potential. Failure could mean the loss of everything they had worked for. The council hesitated. For the first time, they had to reconsider their assumptions. Humans were often seen as reckless and unpredictable, but here was evidence to the contrary. The species had built something remarkable, not for conquest, not for glory, but for survival and protection. They had demonstrated restraint and intelligence in the face of immense power. Tension filled the space above Earth. The Council's ships remained in orbit, waiting for any sign of aggression. The Helios held its position, shields glowing faintly, engines humming quietly. On board, the human team felt both fear and pride. They had built something extraordinary, but now they had to prove that they could control it responsibly. Every decision, every movement, and every system check mattered more than ever before. Negotiations began. Earth's leaders communicated with the Council, explaining the purpose of the Helios and the reasoning behind its creation. They emphasized that humanity did not seek war or dominance, only the ability to protect itself. The Council listened but remained cautious. They had seen many civilizations misuse power, and their suspicion was natural. Humans, however, continued to demonstrate that they could be trusted with responsibility. Inside the ship, the engineers activated the shields fully, a controlled display of human technological advancement. The Council's observers noted the energy fields, the efficiency of the systems, and the precision of operation. It was clear that this was not a simple prototype, but a highly advanced vessel capable of interstellar maneuvering and defense. The demonstration was impressive, calculated, and deliberate. The standoff continued for hours. Neither side made an aggressive move. The Council waited, observing, analyzing, and reconsidering. The humans held their position, confident yet careful, ready to respond to any challenge without unnecessary escalation. The quiet determination of the human crew contrasted sharply with the expectations of the Council. As the hours passed, something unexpected happened. The Council began to engage in dialogue, not threats. They asked questions about the ship's capabilities, the reasoning behind its design, and the people who had built it. Humanity responded with honesty and clarity, explaining the years of work, the sacrifices made, and the goals of Project Helios. It was not only a demonstration of technology, but also a demonstration of character and responsibility. The first major recognition of humanity's achievement came quietly. Some members of the Council admitted in private communications that humans had shown qualities they had not expected: courage, ingenuity, restraint, and the ability to work as a united species. These qualities, rare among young civilizations, indicated that humans could be trusted with greater responsibility than previously assumed. Inside the Helios, the human team felt a sense of cautious relief. They had faced the most powerful beings in the galaxy, and had not only survived but impressed them. Years of secret work, sleepless nights, and tireless dedication had led to this moment. They had proven that humanity could rise to challenges, innovate beyond expectations, and act with responsibility, even under the weight of immense power. Despite the cautious success, the standoff was not over. The Council remained vigilant, and humans knew that future challenges would arise. Yet the standoff had set a precedent. It had demonstrated that humans could confront powerful beings without fear, that they could act boldly yet responsibly, and that they could negotiate their place in the galaxy through intelligence and courage rather than aggression. The Helios itself became a symbol of humanity's potential. It was no longer just a ship, but a representation of what humans could achieve when they worked together, faced danger, and refused to be limited by external authority. Engineers, scientists, and workers who had built it understood that their work had changed the way the galaxy viewed humanity. They had shown that humans could rise to challenges, think creatively, and act with wisdom under pressure. As the standoff drew to a close, the Council withdrew slightly, no longer treating the situation as purely a violation, but as a demonstration. Humanity had proven that it could act responsibly with advanced technology. The Helios remained ready, not as a threat, but as a symbol of human determination and ingenuity. Inside the ship, the crew reflected on the journey. They had started with sketches, calculations, and small tests. They had worked in secrecy, faced warnings, and overcome doubt. Now they had reached a point where humanity could be recognized as capable and responsible. The Helios was ready not only to defend Earth but also to represent the best qualities of a species that refused to be underestimated. The standoff had changed everything. Humans had gone from being considered reckless and immature to being recognized as a species with courage, intelligence, and the ability to manage responsibility. The Council had seen that humans could innovate under pressure, act with restraint, and work together for the greater good. This recognition marked the beginning of a new era. The story of Project Helios was far from over, but the standoff had proven a critical point. Humans were no longer bound by fear alone. They had demonstrated that defiance, when guided by intelligence and responsibility, could lead to recognition, respect, and a place in the galaxy's future. The Helios remained in orbit, a quiet sentinel of human achievement, while the Council observed, reconsidered, and began to accept that Earth had changed. Inside the Helios, the people who had built it knew that their work was just the beginning. Future challenges awaited, but they had proven that humans could face the most powerful beings in the galaxy and stand their ground with courage, skill, and integrity. They had created not just a ship but a statement. Humanity would not be limited by fear, warnings, or assumptions. And so the standoff ended not with conflict, but with recognition. Humanity had risen to a challenge, demonstrated its abilities, and earned the cautious respect of the most powerful beings it had ever encountered. The Helios, a product of years of determination and ingenuity, had achieved what no one believed possible. The humans who had built it, guided it, and operated it were no longer just engineers and scientists. They were pioneers of a new era. They had faced fear, defied rules, and shown that courage and intelligence could prevail even against the most formidable forces. And as the Helios remained ready, a quiet symbol of strength and hope, humanity looked to the future, ready to shape its own destiny among the stars. After the standoff, a new chapter began for humanity. The Galactic Council had seen what humans were capable of, the ingenuity, courage, and determination that had gone into building the Helios. It was clear that humans were no longer a species to be underestimated. The ship had proven not only advanced technology but also the responsible, careful approach of its creators. It had been a quiet yet powerful message. Humans were ready to step into the galaxy with their own voice. Inside the Helios, engineers, scientists, and workers reflected on what they had achieved. For years they had worked in secrecy, enduring long nights, exhaustion, and the weight of uncertainty. They had taken risks that few could imagine, yet here they were, having demonstrated humanity's capabilities to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. There was pride, of course, but also a quiet humility. They understood that their work was not just about a ship. It was about proving what humans could do when they worked together for the greater good. The Council, for its part, began to engage with humanity differently. What had started as strict warnings and monitoring evolved into cautious communication and dialogue. Humans were invited to present their technology, explain their reasoning, and discuss the potential of their species. It was a chance to show that humans could cooperate, innovate, and act with wisdom. It was also a chance to learn from older, more experienced civilizations to understand galactic systems, and to prepare for challenges that no single species could face alone. Project Helios remained operational, though its role shifted. No longer just a hidden experiment, the ship became a symbol of humanity's entry into the wider galactic community. It was a vessel of defense, yes, but also of diplomacy, exploration, and collaboration. Humans began using it not only to protect Earth, but to establish contact with other civilizations, to learn, to share knowledge, and to represent their species as capable, responsible, and determined. Back on Earth, the people who had worked in secret for so long were finally recognized. Governments and citizens alike began to understand the magnitude of what had been achieved. Ordinary people who had once been engineers, scientists, and technicians were now pioneers, leaders, and heroes. They had shown that humans could overcome obstacles, defy expectations, and act with courage and intelligence in the face of uncertainty. The Helios itself became a classroom, a laboratory, and a bridge. Young humans, chosen for their skills and potential, were allowed to observe and learn aboard the ship. Scientists studied energy systems and propulsion technology. Engineers refined the designs, and strategists developed new methods of cooperation and defense. The ship was more than a machine. It was a testament to what humans could achieve when their abilities were trusted and their determination was supported. The Council continued to watch, but their approach had changed. No longer were humans simply observed with suspicion. The Council had begun to see humanity as a species with potential, intelligent, resilient, and capable of great responsibility. Humans had shown that they could rise to challenges, innovate beyond expectations, and act with restraint and wisdom. This recognition was not given lightly. It was earned through decades of effort, risk, and careful decision-making. As humanity integrated into the wider galactic community, new opportunities arose. Humans were invited to participate in interstellar discussions, to share their knowledge, and to collaborate on projects that spanned multiple civilizations. The Helios became a central platform for these activities, carrying humans to other worlds, teaching them about new technologies, and showing that Earth's people could contribute meaningfully to the galaxy. Despite these advances, humans never forgot the lessons of secrecy and caution. The years of underground work had taught them that preparation, planning, and careful observation were as important as raw ingenuity. They continued to refine their technology, develop new systems, and train new generations of engineers, scientists, and diplomats. Humanity had proven that it could act responsibly with power, but it also knew that responsibility required constant vigilance and learning. The success of Project Helios inspired ordinary humans everywhere. Children growing up on Earth now had role models not in distant legends or fiction, but in real people who had achieved the extraordinary. Stories of engineers who solved impossible problems, scientists who innovated under pressure, and workers who sacrificed comfort and safety for the greater good spread across the planet. The narrative was simple but powerful. Humans could face challenges, defy limits, and rise above fear and expectation. Technology developed for the Helios began to influence life on Earth as well. Energy systems became more efficient, engineering methods more advanced, and communication networks more secure. The project had been designed for defense, but its benefits extended beyond military applications. Humanity had learned to innovate with purpose, think creatively, and work collaboratively on a scale previously unimaginable. For the Galactic Council, the Helios represented a new understanding of humanity. They had witnessed the evolution of a species that had once been considered young and reckless into one capable of responsibility, restraint, and ingenuity. The ship was proof that humans could be trusted not only with advanced technology, but also with the responsibility of shaping their own future. It was a quiet victory, earned through action rather than words. Humans themselves were changed as well. The experience of building the Helios, facing the Council, and proving their capabilities transformed ordinary people into leaders, pioneers, and thinkers. They had learned the value of patience, planning, collaboration, and courage. They had faced fear and uncertainty and emerged stronger. This knowledge became part of the human culture, shaping how future generations would approach challenges and opportunities alike. The Helios remained a symbol, not of war, but of hope. It was proof that humans could act boldly without aggression, that they could rise to challenges without abandoning ethics or responsibility. It was a reminder that determination, ingenuity, and collaboration could achieve what once seemed impossible. The ship represented humanity's first step into a new era, one where they could participate fully in galactic affairs while remaining true to their values. As years passed, the Helios and the humans who built it became central to Earth's identity. Space exploration accelerated, collaborations with other civilizations increased, and humans continued to demonstrate creativity and responsibility on a galactic scale. The lessons learned from secrecy, risk, and innovation guided humanity's choices, ensuring that the species remained vigilant, prepared, and capable. The Council, once skeptical and cautious, began to include humans in broader initiatives. Humans were consulted on interstellar trade, technological collaboration, and even defense planning for potential threats. The species had proven its worth, and the Helios was the bridge between fear and trust, between limitation and recognition. Humanity had taken a bold step and, in doing so, had changed its place in the galaxy forever. The Helios was more than a ship. It was proof that ordinary people working together could achieve extraordinary things. It showed that courage, intelligence, and careful planning could overcome fear and limitations. And most importantly, it demonstrated that humanity could face challenges, rise above doubt and claim its place among the stars. For the people who had built the Helios, the journey did not end. They continued to innovate, explore, and lead, guided by the lessons of their extraordinary experience. They taught new generations the value of determination, collaboration, and courage. And while Earth now participated in galactic affairs, the story of Project Helios remained a powerful reminder. Humans could achieve greatness when they dared to dream, defy limits, and act responsibly. The Helios became a permanent symbol of humanity's potential. Its presence in orbit and in distant space missions reminded everyone, humans and aliens alike, that this species had proven itself capable, courageous, and responsible. It was a message carried silently across the stars. Humans were no longer to be underestimated, and their future would be defined not by fear or limitation, but by determination, ingenuity, and collaboration. And so humanity entered a new era, guided by the lessons of secrecy, risk, and courage. The Helios continued to soar, carrying humans to new worlds, teaching, exploring, and protecting. Earth had faced the warnings, defied limits, and emerged stronger, wiser, and respected. The story of Project Helios was complete, yet its legacy had only begun. It had shown the galaxy, and humanity itself, what was possible when courage, intelligence, and determination combined to shape the future.